Alright, let's go to the zoo. Oh, it's gonna be fun.
Do something wild and elope with me. Hurry inside. Step into my parlor and see how I avoid sticky situations.
Come inside and learn why I'm such a sucker for mussels.
If you behave yourself, honey, I promise not to drone on and on. Otherwise, buzz off.
Have you ever been startled by a cat's eye staring out at you from a dark room? Do you know why they glow? Well, cats are hunters, and hunters have to have good eyesight, which cats do. But cats usually hunt in the dark, so their eyes are especially adapted for night vision. In daylight, their pupils close down to tiny slits in order to keep the light out. But at night, the pupils open wide to let in as much light as possible. The back of a cat's eye is coated with a substance like polished silver, which reflects the light coming into the eye. So if you shine a flashlight at a cat at night and its eyes glow, you're seeing the light reflected off that silvery coating. The same thing happens with the cat's wilder relatives, tigers, lions, and leopards. But you really wouldn't want to meet up with them in the dark, bright eyes or not. Even the laziest house cat has many of the qualities of its wilder kin, like the lion. The 4 long teeth in the front of a cat's mouth are deadly weapons used for biting and tearing flesh. And as you might have discovered, their claws can be dangerous weapons, although they usually keep them pulled back or retracted so they can hunt their prey silently on padded paws, and so they don't hurt you when you're playing together. Like many other hunting animals, they have a well-developed sense of smell and sharp hearing. Cats always seem to be alert when they're awake, but on the other hand, cats spend a great many hours each day just napping. Did you know that when your dog buries a bone, it's repeating a behavior that goes back thousands of years to its ancestors? Scientists don't know the exact origins of the dog, but believe that they are relatives of the wolf, jackal, coyote, and fox. So you see, dogs have some untamed wildness in their background. Burying bones is a reminder of that wildness. When dogs were wild, they had to fight for food and protect what they had. That's why they buried bones, to keep their food supply safe from other animals. Today, of course, a pet dog can rely on its owner for food, but it still likes to bury its bones. Burying bones is not the only leftover from your pet dog's wild history. For example, have you ever wondered why a dog circles a few times before lying down to go to sleep? It probably goes back to the time in the wild when the dog's ancestors had to make a nest of forest leaves to keep warm and protected. When a dog howls, it's probably from the time when wild dogs kept in touch with the rest of the pack by howling, the way wolves do now. Wolves also have group get-togethers where they all howl. We're not sure why they do this, but they seem to be having a great deal of fun, with lots of milling around and tail wagging, sort of like a wolf party. What was one of the largest prehistoric creatures ever to walk the earth? Why, the Brontosaurus, of course. Its very name means thunder lizard, because when it walked, the earth must have groaned under its massive weight. In the United States, the Brontosaurus roamed in the western states of Wyoming and Colorado. Of course, that was over 100 million years ago, during the age of reptiles, when the dinosaurs were king. How large was the Brontosaurus? Scientists think it must have weighed 30 to 40 tons and was 90 feet long from head to tail, as long as 3 buses. Lucky for the other dinosaurs that the Brontosaurus was a vegetarian. Scientists used to think that the Brontosaurus spent a fair amount of time in water, where the uplift took a lot of the weight off its feet. But now, many think that it traveled in herds on grassy plains, much like the elephant. The Brontosaurus is one of a group of dinosaurs called sauropods. Sauropods were the largest animals that ever lived. But in spite of its massive size, the Brontosaurus was not the largest of the group. Paleontologists, people who study fossils, used to think that the Brachiosaurus was the largest sauropod. The Brachiosaurus was 10 feet shorter than the Brontosaurus from the tip of its nose to its tail, but it weighed 80 tons. However, in recent years, even larger dinosaurs have been discovered. The Ultrasaurus was 90 to 100 feet long and weighed between 75 and 80 tons. The largest dinosaur of them all was the Seismosaurus, at 100 to 120 feet long, and would you believe 100 tons? That's about the size of 8 elephants. Which dinosaurs were swimmers? Which ones munched on treetops? Where did the different dinosaurs live? And how do we know they existed at all? Well, scientists have found out most of what we know by studying fossils, which are animal and plant remains buried in rocks or seabeds. These remains are so old that most have petrified, which means they've turned to stone. When scientists find enough of these fossils, they can begin to piece together something about the life of the dinosaur. One thing they can learn is where the dinosaur lived, because that's where they'll find the most fossil bones. And scientists have found dinosaur fossils all over the world. It turns out that some kinds of dinosaurs lived in many parts of the globe, while others stayed pretty much in one place. Click on the map to find out a dinosaur that lived there. Fossils of the monoclonius have been found by scientists in Alberta, Canada. The Tyrannosaurus rex is one of the many dinosaurs that once roamed the plains of North America. Ankylosaurus lived in South America, as well as North America and Asia. Stegosaurus lived in Africa, as well as parts of North America and Europe. Pinacosaurus used to live in northern China. The Soviet Union was once filled with dinosaurs like the pteranodon. Plateosaurus remains have been found in southern Germany. If you went to Scotland during prehistoric times, you might have run into an Ornithosuchus. England was once the home of the iguanodon. Have you ever seen the outline of a fish or a fern leaf, perfectly imprinted in a piece of rock, as if it had been carved there? If you have, then you've seen a fossil, the remains of a plant or animal that may have lived millions of years ago. Studying fossils is the way we learn about dinosaurs and other forms of life from prehistoric times. People who study fossils are called paleontologists, and their work is something like piecing a puzzle together. They usually only find bits and pieces of animals, perhaps an imprint left from an organism that died in mud or another soft surface, or just a footprint. Sometimes they get lucky and find a part of the actual body of the animal. But paleontologists can tell a lot from just the few parts they find. For instance, our knowledge of the oldest true bird, the Archaeopteryx, comes from finding only 2 fossilized skeletons. You'd think that after millions of years, an animal's body would decay and its bones would be scattered by the movement of the earth. But in the coldest parts of Arctic Alaska and Siberia, where the weather acts sort of like a freezer, entire animals have been found. Scientists have discovered the complete remains of mammoths and rhinoceroses. They lived much later than the Triceratops and its relatives, but they are still from the prehistoric era. They've been frozen for thousands of years, and yet some of them still have fur, skin, flesh, and even some internal organs. A few paleontologists have been brave enough to sample the meat of these animals and found it to be perfectly fresh and edible. Why do salmon battle rough, upstream waters, sometimes for thousands of miles, just to lay their eggs? They're looking for the perfect place for their young to be born. Often, the adult salmon returns to the very same pool where it was born to lay its eggs. Before the salmon begin their difficult journey, they must be healthy and well-fed, because once in fresh water, they will stop eating. In fact, by the time salmon reach their pond, they may be quite thin and worn out. Once in the fresh water, the female lays her eggs. The male fertilizes them, and then the female covers them with sand. About 2 months later, the baby salmon are born. They stay in the fresh water for up to a year, then go downstream to the salt water. When the time comes for the new salmon to spawn, they'll make that same long journey back to the freshwater ponds, just like their parents. Salmon seem to put all their energy into the swim upstream to lay their eggs. It's just like they were running a marathon race. But afterward, they lose all interest in anything else. They stop eating and float listlessly downstream with the current, eventually to die. It's as if their last great task was to ensure that more salmon will be born, and then they just drift quietly away. A starfish looks more like a holiday ornament than a living thing. Where is its head and its mouth? Does it have eyes? It sure doesn't look like it. But looks can be deceiving, because at the very tip of each of the starfish's arms is an eye, encircled with protective spines. The starfish's outer skin is tough and covered with those same spines. But look in the center on the underside and you can see the starfish's mouth. In addition, all those little discs act like many mouths, drawing in seawater and food. You can also see hundreds of sucker-like tube feet on the underside of a starfish. Those tube feet are used not only to walk around, but also to get food, and, believe it or not, as organs of smell. If you've ever tried to open a tightly closed oyster or mussel, you know how tough it is. Imagine how difficult it is for the starfish, who feeds on shellfish to survive. The starfish manages the trick with its tube feet. It attaches its sucker-like tubes to each shell of the mussel and pulls until it opens. And then the starfish does an even stranger thing. It turns its stomach inside out and pushes it through its mouth to wrap around the oyster and eat it. One other little trick of the starfish. Just like a lizard's tail, starfish can grow back arms that break off. They may even grow a whole new body from just one arm. Only females have babies, right? Well, not when it comes to seahorses. These tiny sea creatures with the horse-shaped heads have a unique system of bearing their young. First, the female lays about 200 eggs. After they're fertilized by the male, she places them in a pouch in the male's body, just above his tail. 40 or 50 days later, he stretches his body and breaks open the pouch so that the baby seahorses can come out. Now that's a really helpful father. Did you know that there are more than 50 kinds of seahorses? They can be found in warm waters, and they range in size from 2 to 12 inches. They eat small sea creatures and the eggs of other fish. People have been fascinated by seahorses since ancient times. There's even a seahorse carved on a mummy case from ancient Egypt. In ancient China, seahorses were ground up and used as medicine. But in Italy, these fanciful little creatures were considered to be good luck. One of the strangest looking things about an elephant is that long, overgrown snout we call a trunk. But in fact, the trunk is a tremendously sensitive instrument that serves as the elephant's hand, arm, nose, and lip, all in one. The trunk is very strong and flexible because it's made up of 40,000 muscles. When necessary, the elephant can use his trunk as a weapon. Usually, though, he uses it to gather food and put it in his mouth, or to suck water for drinking or showering. The elephant's trunk can lift a pole the size of a tree, or pick up a small piece of food with the sensitive finger on the tip. Despite their massive size and strength, most elephants are patient, gentle, and intelligent. In fact, they're more easily trained than any other animal, except the dog. Giant, furry, elephant-like creatures called mammoths roamed the earth in prehistoric times. They died out over time until only 2 descendants were left, the African elephant and the Asiatic elephant. Elephants are the largest land animals. They may weigh as much as 5 tons. Their 2 ivory tusks, which stick out from the upper jaw, are really overgrown teeth. These tusks are used to dig up roots for food and also as weapons. In the case of Indian elephants, one of the Asiatic elephants, normally only the males have tusks. Despite their weight, elephants love water and are very good swimmers. A mother elephant will often carry her baby on her back while she swims. Sadly, due to the greed of poachers, many elephants in the wild are now dying needlessly. They're being killed for their ivory tusks, for beads, trinkets, and jewelry. The bullfighter, or matador, waves a red cape and the bull charges. You know that part. But have you ever tried to figure out why the bull gets so excited over a square of red cloth? In Spain, where bullfighting is very popular, that red cape is an important part of the bullfight. But do you want to know a secret? Bulls can't even see the color red because they're colorblind. So why do they charge? If you waved a white cape, a yellow cape, a green cape, even a plaid cape in front of a bull, it would still charge. It's the movement of the cloth that gets the bull all worked up, not the color red. Have you ever seen an old picture of yourself in a baby carriage? That's how you were kept safe and warm when you went outside. Well, a kangaroo's pouch does the same thing for a baby kangaroo, called a joey. You see, at birth, a kangaroo is just a tiny pink creature, not much over an inch long, and only as thick as a lead pencil. It's not even as big as your little finger. It would never survive on its own in the wild. So the joey crawls into its mother's pouch, a fur-lined sac between the hind legs. In the pouch, the joey is safe and warm and can even nurse. It could get out by the time it's 6 months old, but the pouch is so cozy that the joey often just stays in there. It rides around with its head sticking out, pulling at leaves when its mother stops to feed. Even when the joey is old enough to run, if there's a sign of danger, it will hop over to its mom and climb into her pouch for safety. Kangaroos come in all different sizes. The smallest category of kangaroo is the rat kangaroo, some of which are only 5 inches high. Then there's the medium-sized wallaby. The largest kangaroo is the red or gray kangaroo. It can grow to about 6 feet tall. All kangaroos have short front legs with small paws and very long hind legs, with one large, sharp toe in the middle of the foot. With the help of these powerful hind legs, the kangaroo can jump 25 feet or more. When it's resting, the kangaroo uses its tail for balance, like a 3-legged stool. Kangaroos can travel very fast, up to 40 miles an hour, and their hearing is so good that they can hear an enemy long before they can see it. Kangaroos and all other animals that have pouches are called marsupials. Some other common marsupials are the wombat, bandicoot, opossum, and koala. If you've ever seen a lion napping at the zoo, you might have wondered why this overgrown pussy cat is called the king of the beasts. It's neither the fastest animal nor the largest. It isn't even the most intelligent. But you need only see a roaring, charging lion to know why it got its title. A full-grown lion going for a kill can strike terror in man or beast. Though the lion is a member of the cat family, you wouldn't want one for a pet. Lions grow to 9 feet long and weigh up to 500 pounds. They feed on grazing animals such as gazelles and antelope and can rush their prey at 50 miles per hour. So, although no one can prove that the lion can defeat all other animals in combat, there aren't many that would challenge the king of the beasts. Did you know that the lion has played an important role in the history of human civilization as a symbol of strength? Noblemen put pictures of lions on their shields and armor to show power. The Egyptians believed the lion was sacred. Lions roamed in Europe up to 2,000 years ago, but today they're found mainly in Africa and in one area of India. They live, along with their prey, in open grasslands, hunting at night and resting during the day. Lions hunt only for food, never for sport. And although they can bring down antelopes, zebras, and giraffes, lions never tangle with the tough-skinned elephant, rhinoceros, or hippopotamus. If you've ever accidentally happened upon a beehive, it may have seemed like 1,000 bees were swarming after you. Actually, during certain busy seasons for bees, a beehive can have as many as 60,000 bees in it. At other times, it may have only a few thousand. Bees really need each other. They're very social and organized and can only live for any length of time when they're in a colony with other bees. So how do you make it past all those bees when you want to get honey without getting stung? Actually, it's easy. You just smoke out the hive. You see, smoke calms bees and keeps them from stinging. So when a beekeeper needs to work with the beehive, he takes several smoke pots and lets the smoke drift around the hive. The bees become very calm and quiet, and the beekeeper can then safely do his work. Each one of the thousands of bees buzzing around a hive has a very specific job to do. At the head of them all is one queen bee. Her job is to lay all the eggs. That may sound like a life of leisure, but actually it's pretty hard work. She can lay 1,500 eggs each day and 1 million in her lifetime of only 2 years. Fertilized eggs develop into either worker or queen bees, depending on the needs of the colony. Unfertilized eggs become drones, which are the males that don't sting and gather no honey. The drone's job is to fertilize the queen. Worker bees have different jobs at different ages. Young worker bees clean and polish the cells of the comb. When they get older, they feed the larvae of new honeybees. Still later, some of them will become field bees and go out to gather the pollen, which will become honey. You probably know that bees make honey, and you've certainly seen them travel from flower to flower, landing for a few seconds on each one. But what do flowers have to do with making honey? When a bee visits flowers, it drinks their nectar. Then it carries the nectar home to the hive in a honey sac, a bag-like sac just below its stomach. In the sac, sugars from the nectar undergo a chemical change. The heat of the hive causes most of the water to evaporate, leaving just the honey. The bee fits the thick honey into a hexagonal or six-sided unit of honeycomb, where it will ripen and serve as food for the bee colony. Stored honey has so much water removed that it'll keep almost forever. Have you ever seen a bee up close? Most people run from bees and don't stop to see what they really look like. A bee has 6 legs and 3 distinct body regions: head, thorax or midsection, and abdomen. There are 2 antennae or feelers on the head. The head also has 2 large compound eyes and 3 single eyes, biting jaws, and a sucking or lapping tongue. On the thorax, there are 3 pair of legs and 2 pair of wings. A bee's legs are used to gather pollen. Some even have legs with baskets to help them carry pollen from flower to flower and back to the hive. You've probably heard that bees die after they sting, and you might think it serves them right. But the truth is, all bees don't die after they sting. However, most of the bees you see buzzing around are honeybees, and all honeybees die after stinging, except for the queen, who spends all her time in the hive. Carpenter bees, the all-black ones, don't die after they sting. There's even one little-known family of bees that doesn't sting at all. So the answer to this question isn't a simple one. Some die after they sting, and some don't. But despite all this bad publicity about a little stinger, you should know that bees are actually very helpful to man. More than 50 agricultural crops that we eat are dependent on bees pollinating them. Some farmers actually rent beehives so the crops in their orchards can be pollinated. This makes fruits grow larger and taste better. So what do you do if you do get stung by a bee? First of all, don't panic. For most people, a bee sting is nothing more than a small throbbing pain that goes away rather quickly. But you do need to get the stinger out. You can do that with a pair of tweezers, just like taking out a splinter. And you can cut down on the pain and swelling with some ice or a cold compress. That's really all you need to do, unless you get an allergic reaction. Then it'll really swell up and you'll feel quite ill. You might even have trouble breathing. In that case, you'll need to get medical help very quickly. But next time you see a bee, remember, it isn't looking for you. It's looking for a flower. So if you don't bother it, it won't bother you. You may be afraid of spiders because you've heard that their bite can be poisonous. Actually, although most spiders do have poison glands, very few spiders are poisonous to human beings. In the United States, only the female black widow and the brown recluse are dangerous. Their bite causes pain and illness, sometimes even death in small children. You can tell a black widow by its shiny black body. It's about ½ an inch long and has a red hourglass-shaped mark on its underside. The brown recluse is only about 1/4 of an inch in size, and it has a purplish, violin-shaped marking on the back. There are also some Australian spiders that have poisonous bites. But most spiders are no more dangerous to us than wasps and hornets. In fact, many spiders won't bite even if you hold them in your hand. But be careful. Unless you're absolutely sure, look, but don't touch. Have you ever heard that the tarantula is a deadly, poisonous spider? Well, its bite is deadly to an insect or very small animal, but there's no proof at all that a tarantula's bite is dangerous to man. The tarantula uses its poison mostly to kill or paralyze prey. Then it brings its prey back to its underground burrow, where it sucks out the blood and other body juices. By the way, the true tarantula is found only in Europe and is named after the Italian city of Taranto in southern Italy. The lively Italian dance, the tarantella, developed in the Middle Ages as a cure for the bite of the tarantula. Not exactly a scientific cure, was it? What could be scarier than being a helpless fly caught in a spider web just waiting to be eaten? Have you ever wondered why the spider doesn't get caught in the same web? Well, actually it can, but it doesn't happen often. You see, when the spider first spins the web, it makes sure there are safe threads to use, threads it can touch without sticking to them. A spider produces many kinds of silk. The sticky kind is used to catch prey. But there's also a non-sticky kind that is used to weave the strong spokes of the web. The spider knows which threads stick and which don't, and it simply avoids the sticky ones. It can do this because it has a remarkable sense of touch. Do you know how a spider spins its silk? Those very thin, strong threads a spider uses to weave its web actually come out of a gland in its abdomen. The silk is forced out through tiny holes at the tip. It comes out as a liquid, but becomes solid when it hits the air. There are many kinds of silk, depending on the type of spider spinning it. But all silk is very strong. As a matter of fact, it has greater stretching strength than steel wire. Spiders use silk for their webs, for cocoons for their eggs, and some even use it to swing on, as the wind blows them from place to place, sort of the way a mountain climber uses a rope. There's even one spider that spins underwater.